Welcome to the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast, a presentation of Real Country 92.1 Hank FM. Live from Boo Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks, the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. And now, with head coach Robby Jones, here's the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist.
Shotgun for Tubbs. He will take it. He will follow his blockers over the right side. Cuts it up the field. 10, 5, touchdown Aledo Bearcats. 22 yards for Lincoln Tubbs. The Bearcats now with 4 scores on the night. They lead 28-0.
And they would add the extra point, and then the Bearcats would go on to defeat Brewer in their District 3-5 opener by a score of 64-0. Hi, everybody. Kevin Lonnquist. Welcoming you once again to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. We're coming to you from Boo Rays of New Orleans here in Hudson Oaks, celebrating their 20th anniversary. And don't forget that they have locations over in Lake Worth, of course, here in Hudson Oaks, and of course down in Crowley. Next week, the podcast will return to its normal Monday time slot at 7 o'clock. This week, it was on Tuesday because of homecoming festivities. We had the parade on Monday, and so everyone got to partake in that. And of course, there's the game on Friday against the Birdville Hawks. Bearcats are 2-1 and 1-0 in District 3-5A, as we mentioned, after that resounding victory over Brewer in White Settlement last Friday. Again, homecoming against the Birdville Hawks, 7 o'clock Friday kickoff at Tim Buchanan Stadium. Pre-game show on Hank FM will be at 6:30. We always start the first segment of this podcast with head coach Robby Jones in it, and then in our second segment, we will be joined by wide receiver Blake Burdine and defensive back Adrian Fuller. Okay, so Coach, let's start with 64-0. I think the most impressive thing to me was that you scored on 9 of your 13 possessions. The overall takeaway, and I should say that 2 of those possessions that you didn't score on, that was taking a knee to end the first half and then taking a knee to end the game.
Right. You know, we really want to score on every possession. So, you know, I'm kind of greedy in that regards because, you know, I was offense coordinator for so long, and I just felt like, you know, we need to go out. We need to put points on the board every time we have the ball. But, you know, we did a really good job. I thought our kids, you know, stepped up to the challenge, met the challenge of starting district and getting district started on the right foot.
Nash McElry making the start in place of Gavin Beard, throwing for a little over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. And you used that little flip play several times throughout the game between Blake and, of course, Finley. You got 2 scores out of that. And then there was the big vertical to Blake in the second half. And we'll talk to Blake about that a little bit later. But the talent difference for sure from Lancaster. But what did you see from him in terms of just his growth, running the offense, and just being comfortable back there?
Right. I thought he you know, showed that he can be a varsity quarterback. We were kind of being a little bit too careful with him, so we talked about it at halftime. We said, hey, let's take some shots down the field with him, which we did, you know, early on. We got the ball deep to Blake, but then by that time, the game was so out of hand that we didn't want to throw the ball anymore. So, you know, if we get in the situation where we have to use him again, you know, we feel comfortable with him throwing the ball down the field.
I was going to say, what does that do for him, and what did he share with you maybe on the ride back from Brewer to the to campus on Friday night, or maybe even Saturday during and after the film session?
Well, you know, I didn't talk to him a whole lot. You know, he and Coach Williams do most of the conversation between those two because, you know, Coach Williams is his position coach, and, you know, he just, you know, seemed more comfortable, you know, in the pocket, more in command of the huddle, all those things. So I think, you know, he's going to feel comfortable anytime we need him to play. You know, we're expecting Gavin to be back this week, but, you know, anytime we put Nash in the game, we, you know, expect him to, you know, lead the offense, take the offense down the field, and put points on the board.
Do you put stock in anything about body language, about the way he carried himself in his first start against Lancaster and then last week against Brewer? Anything that you saw there?
You know, I didn't see a whole lot of difference. Nash doesn't lack for confidence. You know, he's a very confident individual, and, you know, and you got to be that way as a quarterback. If you don't have confidence as a quarterback, things aren't going to work out for you.
All right, so having said that, you just mentioned about Gavin Beard, who is expected back this week. Of course, Gavin has not played the previous 2 weeks against Lancaster and Brewer. We're going to use the hockey term, the upper body injury. It's kind of a pain tolerance situation for him week to week. So what's kind of the plan getting him ready this week for Birdville, and how do you want to try and use him, and what do you think he's capable of, and where do you need to dial it back if you can?
Well, he's gotten all the number 1 reps, you know, so as far as the pain and the pain management and pain tolerance, I talked to him today, and he says he feels great. He's ready to go, and so, you know, we're not going to treat him any different. You know, probably won't have just a whole lot of quarterback design runs, but, he will be able to run with the football. You know, if the pocket breaks down and he has to get out, he can go do that. You know, the injury, the way it was described to us is, you know, he can't do any more damage to himself.
Right.
You know, so there's no more damage that can be done. It's just the fact that, you know, at times because of, you know, the injury, it could tighten up on him, and he could have to sit out for a little while. But I think, you know, right now he's telling me he feels great and there's no pain, and we're going to go with it.
Let's get into the running game, because you had about 350 yards against the Bears last week. It seemed like there was nothing fancy, a lot of things between the A gaps, maybe a couple runs were bounced to the outside, because, you know, Brady Powell was actually over 100 yards. Ray Guillory had 80. Caden Wingfield was over 90 yards. And so it was a physical, go right at him type of an approach, and you netted the results from that.
Yeah, and that was the kind of the game plan going in was, you know, run right at them. We've got 3 capable backs that can go in at any time and run the football and get positive yards, and that's what we're looking out of that. You know, we're leaning on that offensive line. We're trying to, you know, the offensive line is still, you know, working on gelling, you know, kind of a work in progress. They're getting better each and every day. That was one of the things, you know, we go some one-on-one pass rush with our offensive and defensive line today, and that was one of the things that the defensive coaches says, hey, they're getting better, you know, so that's a very positive thing for us, you know, going into the fact that we got big game coming up here in a couple of weeks, and you know, we got to continue to get those guys better, and when you get 350 yards in the run game, that shows that they are getting better.
And the good news is this week is that you get your center Ryan Campbell back, and of course then you don't have to switch all your guards around or any of the other movement there, so you get everyone back to the original 5 that you had. I would imagine that's going to be pretty important. Obviously, with Denton Ryan looming, we don't want to look that far ahead because we're still 3 weeks out from that, or 2 weeks out from that, rather. But still, getting those guys back, it's that repetition, it's that familiarity, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's great. You know, great to have him back, and that is key. You know, the fact that those guys, you know, work together constantly in practice. You know, it makes them a one unit type deal, and it's good to have all 5 starters back. So you know, it's going to be a good night for us, I think.
Defensively last week, you held Brewer to just a couple of ticks over 100 yards. They never got inside your 30-yard line, and that looked like a team effort. Didn't have to do anything fancy against them because of how young that team is. They started 7 sophomores on both sides of the ball. But what did you take away from your defensive performance?
You know, once again, you know, I thought we did a great job up front. You know, there were times where, you know, we didn't do a great job. We maybe got too much push in an area and opened up a gap for them, so that allowed them to get a little bit more running yards than what we would like, you know. But I think our secondary has come a long way from where they were in the spring, and that kind of showed in the game the other night.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about the secondary, because the fact that you lose guys like Chris Johnson, Jaden Allen, Jake Gillespie, and Boogie Owens, and this group picked up where that group left off. And did you think there would be kind of a growth period where maybe they were going to have to learn a little bit the hard way here? Or were you, because coaches want to be conservative on how they have their expectations for each of their position groups, or were you surprised, or maybe pleasantly surprised, that they picked up everything so fast?
Well, you know, guys like Adrian, who we're going to hear from here in a little bit, he was on the varsity all last year. So, you know, it's not like he didn't have, you know, the experience of being there and sitting behind those 2 guys and getting out there and playing, you know. But, yeah, we were really happy with the way they played, especially the first 2 games. The first 2 games were what really had us scared, because we knew Geyer had some, you know, firepower coming back,
right,
and they had a brand-new quarterback that we were like, oh, man, they've got a Division I quarterback to go with those receivers that we knew were coming back, and we're going in there with a brand-new secondary. And then we knew Lancaster also had some really talented receivers. So,
right,
you know, we were really pleased with how they played in those first couple of games.
2 Division I quarterbacks, remember. Kevin Sperry at Geyer is committed to Oklahoma, and then Carter Jones at Lancaster is committed to Nevada. So the fact that they were facing that kind of caliber of competition, the guy holding the ball each snap, kind of an impressive debut for each of those guys.
Yeah, that's really nice to have those guys go out and you know, play the way they did. And Adrian had 2 interceptions in those first 2 games. So, yeah, it was good.
He's got scoreboard on everyone. He's got the 2 interceptions for the defense this year, and we'll talk to him about that here in a little bit. Okay, so looking ahead to Birdville, again, the Bearcats and the Hawks this Friday night. This is the 5th all-time meeting, thanks to the Deacon telling us this, that the Bearcats have won the first 4 meetings. First meeting since 2011, so it's been a minute since these 2 teams have faced each other. Lots of changes on that. Of course, they have a new head coach by the name of Chris Johnson. He was the offensive coordinator under Riley Dodge at South Lake Carroll. When you look at them, and of course they've won their last 2 games against Grapevine and Granbury, what kind of stood out to you?
You know, I think they're a really well-coached team. They've had some problems with their quarterbacks. Their returning quarterback starter, I think, was what I was told was injured during spring ball. And then the guy that they were going with at the beginning of the year in the first game got dinged up, and he's been in and out a little bit. So, you know, they've had some quarterback issues,
right.
So that's kind of limited them a little bit on what they can do offensively. They do have some talented receivers and some pretty good running backs. They have 2 running backs that they'll use. I believe it's the Leggett kid is the main one. But,
right.
You know, I think they're a better team than what their record shows.
Sure. And they have, speaking of those running backs, that's senior Lamar Leggins and then the sophomore is Anthony White. They've pretty much they've averaged about nearly 200 yards a game. Like 2/3 of their offense is going to be running the football. So that seems to be their bread and butter because of the quarterback issues, because they have a sophomore by the name of Zach Wells who's actually had to take the snaps the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that makes it difficult. You know, when you go into a season thinking you've got a veteran quarterback, then you go to your backup, and then you end up with a sophomore, kind of like we have the last
right.
2 weeks, and you got to lean on the run game, and they run the ball well against some pretty good defenses. And that's what we're expecting them to do, is come out and try to establish the run. Of course, you know, that's one of our bread and butters, is stopping the run. So I think that's going to be one of the key matchups of the game, is, you know, being able to stop their run game.
What stands out about, just in terms of just the shiftiness or just the skill set that both Leggins and White have?
They've got some speed, you know, so if you give them a crease, they're able to, you know, get into the secondary and then run away from guys.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, as far as like just with Zach Wells is concerned, the apparent starting quarterback for the Hawks. He's only thrown for like maybe 122 yards so far this year. But when you see a sophomore, of course, he's probably kind of got a little bit of the shock value out of his face because he's already played 2 varsity games. Now, it's a different animal playing you guys just because of what your program represents. Anything that you saw there that could be of a point of concern that you kind of have to look for with him?
They've used a little bit more quarterback run game when he's in there. So, and that's always, you know, a problem for a defense, because it's 11-on-11 football. It's not just some guy back there handing the ball off, you know. So he is definitely a threat in the run game. So that's something we got to make sure that we are accounting for.
And it seems like, though, for you all, that you've done such a great job with your defense in terms of eliminating quarterbacks, because, you know, Carter Jones, of these first 3 quarterbacks that you've faced, would have appeared to have been the most agile one, the one who was going to have the best opportunity to make some runs. Never got anywhere. In fact, none of them really got anywhere. I mean, Kevin Sperry was running for his life in the opener, and of course, Jones was doing his thing. And of course, you know, you had a sophomore last week that you were facing too, in Lucas Davis from Brewer.
I mean, that's a tribute to our defensive line. And, you know, and we've talked about it, the fact that we have 4 defensive ends that we can rotate and not lose a whole lot, and then you got 4 defensive tackles, and so that can be, you know. That's a huge advantage for us, because you got an offensive line that may be out there for 3 or 4 plays, and then all of a sudden, hey, there's fresh guys, a whole fresh defensive line that's coming in, and those guys are going to be bringing it just as hard as the first group that was in there.
I think that one of the things that I found, and this is my 19th season doing the Bearcats, is the fact that you don't need a lot of linebacker pressure. I mean, if you want to blitz, that's fine, but I mean, just straight up play in and play out. You've been able to bring 4 because you're able to have, you know, 7, 8 guys routinely who can make plays. That's a unique thing that you all have created.
Yeah,
there.
that is really unique. You know, there have been years where, you know, to get pressure on the quarterback, we had to bring linebackers, which put our secondary in some, you know, a lot more man coverage than what we're having to play right now. So, you know, getting the pressure like we have been with our front 4 has been a really big thing for our defense, to make our defense as good as it is right now.
All right, so homecoming 2024 this Friday, and of course all the festivities during the week that follow, and then of course there's the dance, although I don't know if the dance is already taking place or if it's coming up this weekend.
It's coming up.
It's coming up this weekend. All right, so there's all these types of distractions, and I remember Tim Buchanan talking about how we always had to make sure that everyone was focused on the game and so forth. But, you know, in this program over the years has, despite Tim's concerns, I mean, coaches will worry about everything. If you could give them something to worry about, they would definitely do that. But, you know, your program has handled this so well over the years. What kind of reminders, though, do you kind of send to your guys as this week is going on before kickoff on Friday?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the biggest worry that I had this week was the little kids at the parade because, we try to keep those kids back on the sidewalks as the floats are coming down, and the kids are throwing candy to them, and, man, they are running up to the trailer, and they're coming really, really close to those tires.
Wow.
And that's the biggest.
Scary.
Yeah, that's the biggest concern I've had all, week. Our kids do a good job of focusing on, the task at hand. There's been no change at practice. Practice has gone as usual. Now, we did have to change a little on Mondays. Mondays we normally go out and have some special teams and weights and all that. Well, we cut the special teams out. So we, have to spend a little bit more time on Tuesday, Wednesday on some special teams. But, our kids handle it really well. They go out, they do the parade, which, is a great thing. It's a great community thing. There was tons of kids there. Of course, I'm walking next to the float trying to keep them back away from the tires of our trailer, so it was a stressful situation for me. And one of the dads that was driving one of the football floats said, man, that's the most stressful drive I've ever had, because of, the kids being so close and, we're weaving, in and out of some turns, in front of the high school, and those trailers are making turns, and you can't see, what's happening, behind you. So, yeah, it's just, one of those things that you have to endure. And good thing is nobody got hurt during the parade, and
right.
And then we had the pep rally where there was a lot of community support there. So it's a great thing for the community, and I think it took them less than 2 hours to sell out of tickets. For the home side when they opened up the ticket sales today. So, we're expecting a big crowd and, a good football game.
All right, we're looking forward to it. Coach, always thanks for the time, and we'll look to see you guys take the field and go against the Hawks on Friday. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
In this first segment of the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, of course, we have our two sponsors by H5 Sports Barn and Hiley Mazda. For H5 Sports Barn, they and Nye Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training. H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. Then by Hiley Mazda. Looking for a new ride? Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth has you covered. Right now, get $3,500 off MSRP or 0% interest for 36 months on the 5-star safety-rated CX-5 and CX-30. Hurry in, these offers will not last long. Experience top-notch service and unbeatable deals in their new state-of-the-art facility in Fort Worth, or check out their extensive Mazda lineup at HileyMazdaofFortWorth.com. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family owned and operated for more than 30 years. Second segment is going to be coming up. We're going to have Blake Burdine as well as Adrian Fuller joining us. Stick around. The podcast will be returning following this break. Good turnout here over at Brewer of New Orleans. Thanks to you all for coming out. We'll see you here in just a few moments.
McElry will throw downfield. He's got Burdine wide open. He's going to go. 40, 30, 20, 10. Touchdown, Aledo Bearcats. 81 yards. Burdine snuck behind the defense. They didn't pick him up, and all he had to do was catch it at around midfield, which he did, and the Bearcats on the board once again.
And the 81-yard touchdown pass from Nash McElry to Blake Burdine, one of two that Blake had in that game, a career-high 117 yards for him. And the Bearcats again rolled in their District 3-5A opener last week, 64-0 over the Brewer Bears. Welcome back to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. Coming to you from Brewer of New Orleans here. We want to thank them being a part of the Aledo football and of course the Aledo athletic calendar all throughout 2024 and 2025. Now time for our second segment. But before we get into that, let's get you caught up on the Aledo alumni report. Money Parks, the former wide receiver, he's still playing in college, and I think this might be year number 12. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Anyway, he's at Utah. So far this year, 8 catches, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns. Last week in Utah's 38-21 victory over Utah State, 4 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. And a big game this week for the Utes. They will be in Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. That's number 12 Utah and number 14 Oklahoma State. 3 o'clock kickoff will be on Fox. And then the former tight end, Jason Llewellyn, you might remember he began his collegiate career at Oklahoma, went into the transfer portal. He is now at Texas Tech. playing a little both tight end and defense. He saw some action last week in the Red Raiders' big win over North Texas. He is also listed as their deep snapper, or one of their deep snappers this year, so kind of an interesting change for Jason on this. Now, for our second segment here, we're pleased to be joined by my immediate left, wide receiver Blake Burdine, and then to my far left, defensive back Adrian Fuller. Guys, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's just talk about the general things that you guys, both of you on this, what you learned in these two non-district games against Denton, Guyer, and Lancaster. What was the major takeaway for you? We'll start with you on this, Adrian, in terms of just what you guys got out of those two games.
Out of those games, I felt like we got closer together and helped us bond more to realize that we can do anything, that we're going to win district and go all the way to state and win it all.
And then for you, Blake?
I would just say we learned that not everything's going to be given to us. We're going to have to earn it. And definitely brought us together as a team and just bonded us together. So, yes, sir.
Two 6A teams that you guys opened. Of course, Lancaster was like you guys, 5A Division I last year, and they did go up to 6A. They had more students. You guys just missed it going up to 6A. But, from a talent and athleticism standpoint, what was the major challenge about facing those teams? Because those were two four-quarter games. Obviously, last week wasn't against Brewer, but what did you get from those two four-quarter games? We'll start with you, Adrian.
I got that it was going to be a dogfight, and that we knew that going into the game that it was going to be a dogfight. But we got that we can all do it if we all just stick together and just keep working hard and just finish strong.
And then for Blake, just for you, because you've played in a lot of these games, of course, with Ryan last year and, of course, all the playoff games, that sort of thing. But just taking away from that, you have to go from opening kick to final whistle.
Just like Adrian said, we knew it was going to be a dogfight, and then Coach Williams kept urging us to stay strong with tempo, playing fast like that. So we just we conditioned hard all summer, and the tempo really helped us throughout all the four quarters of the game.
All right, Adrian, I want to talk to you a little bit about this because you were an understudy last year for Chris Johnson and or for Jaden as well, Jaden Allen. And so I'm wondering what the value you got from just working with those guys, even though they got the majority of the snaps. They were part of that no-fly zone last year. But what did you take from working with those two, learning from those two, and then what was big for you in terms of just preparing for the season, learning what you learned from those guys?
Yes, sir. I learned a lot. Just everything they did was just great. They set a big standard, and with that going this season, it really just helped me build confidence to know that I could do just as good, if not better, than what they did.
And is it more or less like a way of studying film, looking at tendencies, or just learning the mechanics of the position? What do you think it was for you just in terms of just things that you worked on in the offseason?
Just learning the mechanics of the film really helped me. Just watching them do what they do just helped me get on the field this week.
And then you face, as we talked earlier in this podcast with Coach Jones about facing two Division I commits at quarterback, and Kevin Sperry at Guyer, he's going to Oklahoma, and Carter Jones at Lancaster, who's going to Nevada. So you had to grow up in a hurry.
Yes, sir.
And then all you did was you intercepted each of them in the first two games. So why don't you take us through the two interceptions? We'll start with the one against Guyer, with the one I think was down at the 2-yard line, and just take us through what you saw there and break that play down.
Well, that's really something we've been practicing all week in practice, just watching their film and repping it every day. And just I happened to be there and read it at the right time and got the ball.
And then what about Lancaster? Because that was one against Lancaster where he's trying to throw it, and then you just kind of ran under it before you ran out of bounds on that. And so,
well, that is something we do in half line every day, cover 4, just rollouts. And I happened to see a rollout, and I jumped it and was there at the right time.
You did what you were coached to do.
Yes,
so
sir. Coach, yes.
Okay, so Blake, let's turn it over to you. Obviously you've had this great experience working with Caden Finley too on one side, and now it's your show as one of the top receivers. Just putting it all together on Friday, you got it going on the first offensive play on that little flip pass from Nash. Just take us through that play, what you saw there, and was it expected to score, or what were you guys trying to get out of that play?
So yes, sir. I saw the defense lined up, and especially after Lamel's big punt return, I was pretty confident I was going to score. And then all credit to the blockers; they made my job easy. So I just trusted them, and then found the pylons.
And then take us through the deep vertical.
So the deep vertical, they were super aggressive on flying down on bubbles, and so we sent Ray out in motion, and they all rolled down to him and nobody picked me up. And then Nash put it on the money. I was just thinking, don't drop it the whole time. And then it was a pretty easy pitch and catch and run in the end zone. So.
Yeah, that's actually one of the more tougher catches at a receiver, because when you're all alone and there's no one around, you're like, I better catch this thing. And then your mind starts to go all over the place.
Yes, sir. It was a little scary, but we got it done.
Exactly. Okay. And I want to ask you a little bit, because you guys ran that play, the little flip pass, about 4 or 5 times in that game. You caught a couple, Caden caught one. What's the uniqueness? The timing of it is really, really important if that's going to work and be successful. But how much is that repped, and what do you guys take out of that because if you can get the blocking on the edge, it can be a big gainer?
Oh, so we rep it actually a lot in practice. We rep it a lot, and we take a lot of pride in the speed we have with our receiving core and our physicality out wide. And so we know if we can get the edge, get our blocks out wide, that it can be a big play for us every time.
Now, you were dealing with a physical issue in the offseason, but you made a lot of progress to come back. Just where are you now, and how good does that feel to be just 100% healthy and playing like you want to play?
Yes, sir. I feel as good as I've ever felt, as fast, as strong. So I'm really happy to be back. This summer was a grind, but we did what we needed to do, and now I'm back better than ever.
Okay, and Adrian, let's talk a little bit about this defense. I mean, how it showed up in the first 3 games of the season. Of course, great challenges against Geyer and great challenge against Lancaster. That front really, though, has owned the first 2 games.
Yes,
and what has that meant, though, for them being able to make that push to make it a little bit easier for you guys in the secondary?
Yes, sir. Our front line is just, they do it all, you know. Getting to the quarterback, killing them, not giving them enough time to run the ball, pass the ball has really helped, you know, the secondary with, like, in case a bust coverage, something, you know, they're there to step up for us.
Okay, and how much can you look down there, or can you, or how much, let me rephrase that. How much can you focus on your guy when you have that kind of faith in your defensive front to make that kind of push?
Oh, I can focus on my guy so much more better to know that my guy's not going to be able to get the ball because his quarterback's already sacked, right?
Yeah, there's 5 or 4 sacks for the Aledo defense this year, but 14 quarterback hurries by this defense. And sometimes I want you to distinguish the difference between what a hurry, because I count the hurries equally as important as the sacks. Can you talk about what that means? Because they're under duress. They got to deliver the football maybe a little bit earlier than they want to. So what does that mean for you guys for the back 7?
It means that, like, we just got to stay on our guys because you never know what the QB might do with our O-line getting to him as fast. Okay,
and then for let's talk, Blake, a little bit about your relationship with Caden. What's that been like with you all just working together on that? And what kind of 1-2 punch can you guys become, do you think? What's ahead of you guys?
I mean, he's my dog. We went through off season together last year, and then when I broke my back, he was there with me every step of the way. When I got cleared for the playoffs in baseball, he was at every game cheering me on, and then now we're doing it on the football field. And we have the best coaches in the state of Texas, which means we have the best coaches in the country. And so I think if we just trust them, me and Finn, we can do some big things this season.
Now, where were you on that play where he scores? Like he gets to the 7-yard line, and he just kind of pushes his way in for the last 7. It was kind of like a rugby scrum on that play.
So I was blocking the safety out wide, and then he got wrapped up and kept going. And so I don't think I did much, but I tried to hop on the back of the pile and push. But I mean, he's a strong guy. So.
Yeah. What do you think? As far as you guys are concerned, let's just talk about. This push for the playoffs. It started last week with the victory over Brewer. You have obviously with Birdville this week. But how does the mindset change into these games from what you all did against Geyer and Lancaster? I'll start with you on this, Adrian.
The mindset is just to keep getting better each week, to move forward each week with getting better, and just winning. Mindset on the state, winning 13.
Okay, and then what about for you, Blake?
I think Adrian said it really well, just getting better each week, staying consistent, and then fall back on our training, just not try and do too much, trust our coaches, and I think that'll lead us to victories.
Now, we know it's out there. Denton Ryan is on October 4th. That's in a couple of weeks. Is it easy to kind of compartmentalize everything to make sure that you're focused on Birdville this week and then Fossil Ridge the following week, then you can focus on Ryan? Or is that a challenge to not look ahead? How do you see that, Adrian?
Well, our coaches teach us really well to just keep your head on the swivel and just focus each week, just go on by each week. So we ain't really worried about Denton Ryan right now.
All right, and then for you, Blake?
I think Denton Ryan's always on our minds. I think it ties back to getting better each week. That way if we do get better each week, then by the time Denton Ryan rolls around, we'll be ready to rock.
All right, sounds good, guys. Okay, so to my immediate left is Blake Burdine, and then to my far left is the defensive back, Adrian Fuller. Guys, thanks for being with us. Let's give him a big hand for.
Thank you.
And we want to remind you that this Aledo Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And we're also brought to you by Hiley Mazda. Looking for a new ride? Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth has you covered. Right now, get $3,500 off MSRP or 0% interest for 36 months on the 5-star safety-rated CX-5 and CX-30. Hurry in, these offers won't last long. Experience top-notch service and unbeatable deals in their new state-of-the-art facility in Fort Worth. Or check out their extensive Mazda lineup at HileyMazdaofFortWorth.com. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family-owned and operated for more than 30 years. Don't forget the Bearcats continue their season. Their second District 3-5A game will be this coming Friday. It is homecoming 2024 against the Birdville Hawks. The pregame show will be at 6:30 on Hank FM, and then the kickoff will start at 7 o'clock with yours truly, Kyle Hicks, Mercedes Meyer, and the Deacon taking care of you all the way through from kickoff to the postgame show. And then we will return next Monday here at Brewer in New Orleans in Hudson Oaks, celebrating their 20th year next Monday with Coach Robby Jones and a couple of selected players. I'm Kevin Lonnquist. Thank you all for joining us. Great crowd. Thanks for being with us tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, with Bearcats head coach Robby Jones and the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist. Please like and subscribe to this podcast and tell a friend. You're also welcome to join us every Monday night at 7 from Brewer of New Orleans in Hudson Oaks. And then listen to every Aledo Bearcats game, home and away, live on Real Country 92.1 Hank FM, on the free 92.1 Hank FM app, or online at 921hankfm.com.